from the SEC network, a couple of guys who know how to break down film and know how to give it to the listeners, is from Gordy Rush to Cole Cubelic here on Off the Bench. Cole, good morning. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm just wondering how long it took you to put together a 14-minute personal hype video for this game.
It took about like 15 hours, maybe, somewhere around there.
Wow.
It was a little – I pulled an all-nighter. I actually haven't pulled an all-nighter since, well, last year when I made the Alabama episode. Whatever. Yeah. It was great, though, and now we're out here in the city, hyped, ready to go. You are missed, Cole, but I get it. You're big time now up there in Bristol, but I'm very excited to talk about today's game. I just want to start here because – nobody knows the lines like you do. And I mean in the trenches, right? That's what I'm talking about. And with so much talk about last year's Clemson defensive line, how incredible they were compared to this year. What is your opinion? Like, how good is this Clemson D-line here in 2019, 2020?
I don't think it really compares to last year, but I do think they're talented. I think they have guys who can make plays. I think they have guys who can be problematic, but a lot of that really comes more from Brent Venables this year than it did the last 2 or 3 years. I think the last few years he sort of understood that he had a couple of guys up front that he could just sort of let them do what they do, and everything else was going to work itself out. They were going to be able to cause havoc. They were going to be able to cause disruption, things like that. And you look at Tyler Davis and Justin Foster and Xavier Thomas, Niles Pinckney, they're guys who I think are good football players. They're just not great. And last year they had a couple that were great. I think the great football players on this Clemson defense are on the outside at corner. I think Darian Kendrick and A.J. Terrell are vastly underrated. They're very good corners. We all know about Isaiah Simmons. I think everybody on every channel, on every medium has covered what they think of Isaiah Simmons and everything that he's capable of doing by now.
Yeah.
Kayvon Wallace is a very good football player. And they're just a hard-nosed, they're sort of a lunch-pail defense. They're not super athletic all over the place. They don't have a ton of just high-end NFL guys, but they do have a few. But I think they win more with scheme this year. I think they know where to be, they know what to do, and Brent Venables plays. And I think that's sort of one of the things that separates him. I don't think he plays situations. I don't think he plays down and distance. I don't think he plays time of game. I don't think he plays position on the field as much as he plays plays. He calls a defense based on what play he thinks is coming, as opposed to maybe a group of plays that he thinks is coming or what might be best in a certain situation. And what's evident of that is how long it takes him to get his play called. You'll often see Clemson guys looking around, looking to the sideline, and all of a sudden the ball snaps. They got caught in a couple short yardage situations like that against Ohio State, but they get caught in regular situations as well. So it makes me wonder if tempo could be very advantageous for LSU tonight.
Yeah, I mean,
there are a couple different directions that I think are going to be really interesting with how this game goes.
No, that's a great point, Cole. In fact, if LSU likes any matchup that they have personnel-wise, anything like that, yes, you can expect and should expect tempo tonight. Kind of what you were just saying. Seth Galina just tweeted about this. One thing that Venables is an expert at, he's an expert at knowing where you want to throw hot and then covering that, bracketing it, right? It creates a lot of interceptions. LSU has been expert at avoiding that, avoiding those traps. Who do you think wins that scheme battle today?
I mean, we haven't seen Joe Burrow lose it.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly.
Here's what I keep going back to, and I understand, Clemson's scoring defense and Clemson's, yards per play defense and all this other stuff, but Joe Burrow played Auburn. Joe Burrow played Florida. Joe Burrow played a pretty good Texas A&M defense, especially when you consider their defensive line. Joe Burrow played Georgia, who, when they played them, was one of the best defenses in college football. Nobody has even, taken one of this guy's shoes off in the track meet that he's been running this entire season. It's unbelievable. So I just have a hard time imagining that all of a sudden some different defense is going to be shown. And I've seen everybody do it different ways. Kirby waited until after the look over, and then he changed their defense. Kevin did something totally different before the snap, and then did something completely different after the snap when they played Auburn. Everybody's done everything. And I will say this, what you say about what Brent Venables does is accurate. However, if you're patient and you watch how plays develop behind where some of those robbers go in Clemson's defense, there's a ton of space that's left open for balls to be thrown, completions to be made, and big chunks of yardage to be had.
Yeah,
not a lot of people have talked about the special teams matchup in this, I guess because of just all the flair in this game, man, right? Right? But could it come down to a kick?
Man, come on.
Could it come down to a kick?
I mean, if it does, I don't know who to tell you who has the advantage. I can't even tell you the names of these two punters. I don't care what their names are. I don't care about special teams. There's too many other great football players that are going to be competing for us to be talking about punters and kickers right now.
So to Jordy's point, LSU does have a massive advantage in terms of percentages, but this is a single game sample, right? So like, doesn't matter if you're a kicker, it doesn't matter what you've done to this point, you have to perform today, obviously.
So, Cole, I got one for you here on that note. When we're talking about Venables, we're talking about Burrow, Venables being so creative and Burrow not losing one of these chess matches all season long. I guess the simple question is, how would you defend Joe? Through 14 games, you've got 14 games of data. I mean, here you are with one game left to play him. How would you defend him?
I would not pressure him. I would just basically tell my front 3 or 4, this game is on you guys. You have to find a way to make something happen. And I would give them advantages. You know, I would show some things and bail out and, you know, maybe run some zone blitz type stuff, which Brent Venables does. But I would drop some guys and bring some different guys. But I would not bring 6, 7, 8 on a regular basis against this group. I just think you're asking for it if you do that. I would rely on my front to be able to get pressure. I would do it with twists and then showing some different looks, and then I'd make him work. I would tell my secondary, you have to get receivers on the ground. We're going to give up the stuff underneath, and it's kind of the Auburn mentality of we're going to try to limit explosive plays, and hopefully if we make him go, 8, 10, 14 play drives instead of 2, 4, 6 play drives, that increases our chances of him making a mistake. And we also, by the way, think that our offense can go score some points. So, you got to clamp down in the red zone, which Clemson has given up fewer red zone touchdowns than any team in college football this year. They might be able to do that. And I think you find a way to make Joe Burrow work. Put more pressure on him as far as having to complete more passes, having to do more, as opposed to just relying on explosive plays, which he's been so good at creating the entire season. I'm playing 3 deep safety. I'm playing cloud coverage. I'm playing off the entire time, forcing him to work underneath. Maybe we get a fumble. Maybe there's a couple penalties that slow down a drive. Maybe something happens out of the norm that gives us a little bit of an advantage. And I'll tell you the other thing. I pray that I win the coin toss, and I defer, and I try to get a 2-for-1 at the end of the half because this is the kind of game that really could be. I mean, people aren't talking about that. That's actually a massive deal. Winning the coin toss could be a massive, massive deal in this game.
Especially in a game where it seems so evenly matched. So it sounds like we're kind of in agreement that the LSU offense is going to do what it needs to do. I think it'll be successful. The other side of the ball, to me, is much harder to figure out. I think that this Clemson offense is the best offense they've seen, maybe, right there with Alabama. But this LSU defense has been playing a lot better lately. How do you see that one playing out? Do you think this LSU defense looks more like the defense we've seen recently, or maybe the one that was causing some questions to arise as to whether or not they were the 1 seed?
I mean, we think that LSU has been an offense built around explosive plays. Clemson, almost more so, has been an offense built around explosive plays. And I think that the athleticism and the ability to run and the hybrid-type players that LSU brings on that side of the ball are going to pay gigantic dividends in this game. I think you take your chances if you're Dave Aranda, and whether it's Glenn Logan, Farrell Shelvin, Ika, Fehoko, Lawrence, you try to win with 3 or 4 in the box. And I think you sort of try to spill everything else to the outside, and then you've got super athletes like Chason, like Stevens, like Vincent, like Delpit, like Queen even, and Phillips, who can get out on the perimeter and make those plays.
Yeah.
I feel like here in the back half of the season, LSU's done a pretty good job tackling in space. I don't feel like this is a Clemson offense that can just run past LSU. I don't think they're that much more athletic. Now, Fulton's got to have a good game. Stingley's got to have a good game. There are going to be a couple other guys, whether it's Vincent, Flott, somebody who is going to be manned up on a receiver that's going to have good games. Like, you can't just give up deep balls like Alabama did early in the game last year and just have everything all of a sudden change, and you got to revamp your game plan. But I actually think it's a good matchup. LSU's John Simpson is the only guy up front that physically can push some of these LSU defenders around. So you only really have one physical mismatch up front. And I think that they're a team. I was surprised when I looked at the numbers that Travis Etienne has almost 900 yards between the tackles this year. Because to me, he feels more like a perimeter guy, an outside guy, somebody who takes you to the sideline and then just gets north and south and he's gone. But I think LSU has a smaller number of bodies who can do enough damage clogging up the middle of that offense that will allow their athletes to be able to make more plays out on the perimeter. I want to go to one more thing on LSU's offense that we didn't hit, because I want to get you guys' opinion on this. I think this is going to be super interesting. Studying this game, preparing for this game, I have full confidence that LSU can run the football on this team.
Yeah.
I think LSU could come out and I'm talking run the ball early in this game. I think they can push this team. Wake Forest pushed this defensive line around.
Damn.
Obviously, Boston College did a little bit. You anticipate that. You don't get much of a look at sort of how things are going to contrast one another. But I really do believe LSU could come out in this game and push this defensive line around. Now, a couple things can happen there. When they're worried about giving up plays on the ground and yards on the ground, those linebackers walk up to the line of scrimmage. He's done it all year long. If you walk those linebackers up to the line of scrimmage against this group, Joe Burrow is going to unleash some sort of hell that they've never seen before on the second and third level of that defense. They cannot do it. They will not be able to do it. And the difference will be, watch this early. Number one, do Joe Brady and Steve Ensminger go out and truly commit to running the ball early? If they do, watch Brent Venable's defense, because I think he needs to play 3 down, and it's like a 3-3 star defense that he plays. And if he sits in that, I think it gives him more advantages at the second and third level than playing 4 down. So if they run them out of 3 down and get them in 4 down, then that gives Joe Burrow a huge advantage as to what he wants to do, evening up the defense and being able to locate where your mismatches are in a much more consistent basis. So that's kind of what I'm watching in this game early. But I'm actually most interested will that LSU coaching staff come out and truly be committed to running the ball? Because I don't think they have to. I'm not saying that's what they have to do to win this game, but I think they could be very successful with it. And I'm just interested to see if they come out and go 4 yards, 8 yards, 3 yards, 6 yards, 12 yards. Like, do they just keep going with that?
Yeah.
Why get away from it? And,
I mean, and
like we talked about earlier, I think tempo can be a huge advantage. So if you're going fast and you're running the ball, like that's about the safest offense you can play.
It's an Auburn game, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Second half of Auburn. But to Cole's point, that was more of an in-game adjustment. Yeah. I wonder, do they come out with that attitude from the start? Cole, you're always the best, man.
Enjoy it tonight, Cole. Thank you, man.
Thanks, guys.